Hey, what's up? Travel Chronicles. We'll call this the election special part 2. This just in. They gave Wisconsin to Biden. Beyond me why you would let anybody who wants to wear cheese on their head vote in a presidential election, but they do it. So they got to vote, and apparently they voted Biden. Now look, I understand Wisconsin. Like, there's been a referendum on Republicans in Wisconsin over the last 4 or so years, and apparently there was a big miss on Taiwanese or Chinese manufacturer that was supposed to come in there and put in like 100,000 jobs, and they completely under-delivered, and they built like a warehouse. That was it. Like, they never built any manufacturing. The people that they did hire was like less than 300 total. So it was just a mess. I think it cost. Was it Paul? Used to be the Speaker of the House. I think it cost him his congressional seat. It cost the governor. He's now a Democrat. But the interesting thing to me, so now Biden is like a Michigan win and a Nevada win away from being at 270. Right, it's the second day. It's still not fully clear who the president is, which is just, it's crazy. But with the pandemic, people wanting to mail in votes and stuff and not go and vote in public. I understand the concern. We just had a guy return to work who had COVID, tested positive for it. And his testimonial is wow, this is nothing, basically. It's something where he said he had the muscle aches. I even know he had the fever, wasn't coughing, sneezing, nothing like that. It's just he had muscle aches and then diarrhea for a couple of days, and then that was it. And now he's back to feeling fine. Still with no taste or smell abilities, which is that would just be weird. So I know that maybe I haven't had it yet. Maybe I haven't had it because I don't remember losing the taste or smell for multiple weeks, other than just my nose running like crazy for about 2 weeks. Maybe right then I couldn't taste it. I don't know. I wasn't paying attention right then. But these states that have the Democratic governors who have basically shut the states down during this pandemic and made it, basically miserable to live there, where people couldn't do anything. Those states have turned blue for Biden, and it's just so remarkable that people can look at how, be in an area, live under the rule of their local government, and blame the federal government for the missteps, for the misdeeds, right? If things are going well, state's taking credit for it, right? The governor's taking credit for it. If something's going bad, it's like, well, look what the president did. How? I'm not even sure how that makes sense. Look at the state of California. Highest taxes anywhere in the country. You've got a place like Los Angeles or even San Francisco, the cities themselves, wherever you see video of people just being on the street, it's like needles, human feces. They're dealing with that. Tent cities where homeless people have just put up tents and just in massive amounts. And you're hearing about entertainers. I don't even know if you want to call it social influencers, right? Like people with podcasts, those types of things that are moving out of the state, trying to get out of there. Your actors and everything, they're living in gated communities, so they don't have to deal with that stuff. But just regular people, I don't know how you would deal with that and want to live in that squalor, that mess, and think that that's all right. But somehow still blame a Republican president instead of the local officials that are running the stuff and allowing it to happen. Where's the referendum on them? But in the Midwest, you've got states like Wisconsin and Michigan that have pretty well locked everything down. They didn't want kids to play sports in the fall. And it made life in general just miserable to even be there. With no rules and no provisions, to go forward. And I don't understand how you make that a referendum on a Republican president when your Democratic governor is the one that's, screwing you over. And I have to think that in some of these other states where Republicans were governors, there was a little more pressure on them to open things up, to grant a little more freedom to people and let people make their own choices. That's what people want. I don't want Joe Biden making my decision if I can go to my kid's game, if my kids can play a sport. That just none of the evidence backs any of the decisions right now. We've been into this for almost 10 months, and we're looking at things. Well, 9. Just say 9 full months, but we're looking at things in these glasses, and it keeps changing, right? At first it was like, oh, we've got to flatten the curve so the hospitals can handle it. So we're not flooded in the hospitals. All right. So we did that for, I would say 3 months, right? And then we started to open things back up. And then it became about the case count. Like, look how many people are testing positive. And there's 91,000 people tested positive yesterday on election day. So in 2-3 weeks, what's that number going to look like after people went to the polls? And there's some places that were, suspect or had, people with COVID come in later, that it's just going to be a mess in 2 weeks because we had this election. My contention is if we had this election last year, after 3 years, like if Trump would have won in a landslide, there would have been no reason to vote against him. But now we can say, there's 200,000 people died from COVID. Almost 3 million people die in a year. So we've had 200,000 die in 10 months. 9 months. It's like, that's 10% of the total death rate in the country normally. And that's not even taking into account the other symptoms and things that these people had that may have been the actual reason for the death. We're just saying COVID related. Not even like solely COVID was the only reason why people died. The first thing they got to do is, here's what will happen when if Trump doesn't, he still has a pass. Trump still has a pass, but he has to win Georgia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and Michigan. Like, he has to win Michigan. Right now, Michigan's showing blue, so it's not looking good. And like I said, that's the same. They're gonna have the same mentality of what Wisconsin did, because Wisconsin couldn't do anything, Michigan couldn't do anything, and now it's gonna be, it's Trump's fault. That's gonna fall back on Trump. And part of the stuff in Wisconsin was his fault. He maybe should have done more, put more pressure on, or shouldn't have, oversold. But that's what politicians do. They come in, they oversell. People buy. That's exactly what Joe Biden did. He is oversold. He's overcommitted. You think he's going to shut down fracking? No, he's not going to shut down fracking. Number one, he ain't going to support it. He's probably not going to go out of his way to help it. But fracking's still going to make money. Let's not be mistaken there. But putting in a place to deal with the the material you're pulling out of the ground, the oil and the gas, a cracker plant, that may not get built. Some type of long-term, gas-fired power plant, that may not be getting built. They're talking about all these, moving away from fossil fuels. It's like, what do you think people burn in their house for warmth in the winter? It's like, okay, we can talk about cars. Yeah, people can get an electric car, but not everybody has an electric furnace. A lot of people burn wood. Wood's not a fossil fuel, but people are burning natural gas. Where do you think that's coming from? it's so like we were so close to getting rid of Obamacare too, and now that wouldn't happen. Like there's a lot of bad things to look forward to if Biden's elected president. It's gonna be bad, and I'm debating because of all the hatred and vitriol you've seen in social media and posts about how evil Trump was and how much of a racist Trump was, and like you look at what people have actually like. Biden's like an actual racist. Like that's what an actual racist looks like. 47 years as a politician has done nothing to help anybody in any other race other than his own. And most of the time, the only thing he's helped is his own pocketbook. But like that's the guy you're going to depend on as a savior to help race relations in the country. Like, give me a break. Oh, but he worked for a black guy. Oh, and he picked a minority woman as his running partner. I'll say minority woman because she's Indian and Jamaican. Like they want to pawn her off as as an African American. Like that's the farthest thing she is. Like she's a Jamaican Indian whose mother immigrated to America at 19 for school, and then left and went to Canada where she went to school. Kamala, she went to school in Canada. Give me a break. But apparently when she was in elementary school, she had to ride the bus. Joe Biden wouldn't let her on. But somehow it was still okay for her to run with. Like, you gotta have a little bit of principle at some point. She has none. If somebody was that much against me and wouldn't let me ride a bus, and they're like, hey, I still want you to be my vice president, I'd be like, I don't think so. We don't see eye to eye. We don't see things the same. And I said, no, thank you. Those two have zero principles to stand on. At least with Trump, when he said something, you knew that's what he stood for. That's what he stood behind and stood by. And that includes denouncing racist groups, which he did multiple times. But, they just, the media was against him. They really were. These last 4 years. And he's been battling them, plus trying to do the president job. Like he's probably done more in 4 years than anybody else. America's closer to energy independence. If we're not, then what we have been. But I actually think we may be energy independent completely with the fracking and things. And he brokered multiple peace treaties in the Middle East. Some over a couple of month period. So that is... it's impressive, one, and two, after all is said and done, like I hope that the media does give him the credit that he deserves for what he did while he was in office, and he honestly should come away with a peace prize at some point. Like Obama got a peace prize, Nobel Peace Prize, and then he immediately sent more troops to Afghanistan, and I was like, that you just gave him a peace prize. We don't even know what for, but Trump is sitting there brokering peace deals in the Middle East between Israel and some of these other countries. And it's like, why are we not giving him credit? And we can give Obama credit for not doing anything, just being a mixed race president. All of a sudden he deserves a peace prize. And he did nothing but divide this country into its current state. And the media is just taking it and running with it. So... I would say I hope that they give him his just due afterwards, but I would honestly doubt it. And people aren't going to look for it either, because they just want to be spoon-fed stuff. But it's not going to be good. But in that vein, like I don't know that I'll have a problem calling out everything that Joe Biden does over the next 4 years. Well, he probably won't make it 4 years, number one, because he's so old already, and he already looks terrible. You're looking at that, it's like, I wonder how long he's gonna last. Probably not very long, right? And he's out there, he's like, well, let's go, let's fight, let's go for a run, bicycle ride. Let's see what you got. And then, like, the next minute you look at him, he looks like he can't remember anything. So, yeah, I'll challenge you. Whatever. What's the matter with this country? Like, how do we get to this point where those are the two choices in the first place? I hate politicians. Why can't people just be leaders? You know, is it that difficult? No, sometimes I feel like, well, you don't want to hurt people's feelings. You want to say things the right way. You gotta do this and do that. And making a decision is hard sometimes, right? You know, especially if somebody puts you on the spot. It's like, what do you want to do right now? And I'm not like, I like to have the information in front of me. I like to be able to make an informed decision with time. Right, and some things in my mind, like I've planned for worst case scenarios. Like, if this happens, what do we do? You know, especially being a chemical engineer. You know, if somebody calls me in the middle of the night, wake up in the middle of the night, it's like, hey, this is going on. What do we do? And then you just start going through the checklist of things. Okay, this, and you get to the answer. Right? Hey, look at this. Tell me what this looks like, and you can make a decision. And that's easy, right? There's a flow chart, and you're coming to the correct decision. Okay. Decisions like, you know, how to handle COVID. You know, we're dealing with it with the basketball league. You know, I don't know if there's a right or wrong answer. It's just you're going to make a decision, you're going to do it, and you have to live with that decision. But you don't want to alienate somebody. You don't want to say, well, that's dumb. That's stupid. Listen to ideas. Throw ideas back and forth. Be diplomatic about things. And still try to lead is hard. And if you aren't challenged, you know, you may not get the best idea. You know, I think Trump is probably a little unchallenged in what he wants to do and what he says. I think if he was checked a little bit more, if somebody was there to check him, things would have maybe went a little bit better. If Pence was more of a check than a rubber stamp, things might have been better. But this, like, he literally got sunk by the pandemic. It's just unprecedented what's happened. I don't fault him for the pandemic, for the response. You know, the early projections were 2 million deaths if we did nothing. Went up to 200,000. That number's a blip. It's noise and a normal death rate for a year. With all the precautions we've taken, you know, solid B+. Really. I don't understand what Democrats think they would have done differently. Like, what would you have done? Literally, what would you have done? Everybody wear a mask. Okay, then what? Don't go anywhere? Live in your basement? It's not an option. You know, hope you don't starve to death. Don't run out of toilet paper. Alright, that's all I got. I'll see you later. Careful. Be COVID free.